Yeah, we played Vance the last game of the year for their senior night. Played them in the first round of the conference tournament, and then the next week drew them in the first round of the state playoffs. That's why it's three times in a week and a half.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I say let's punt. Let's punt.
Now, there was the situation back in 2002, 2003, and this was a once-in-a-lifetime deal when West Forsyth and RJ, it was the year Gary's young ladies went to the state final, when West Forsyth and RJ Reynolds, when Chris Paul was a senior, played 3 times in 10 days. Now, that was pretty special, but I mean, that's a once-in-a-lifetime kind of deal.
All right, we can't give away the whole show before we get started. So let me drop the theme music so we can get started. Here we go. We all good? Can you hear me?
Yeah, now.
I couldn't hear you at first. I was so confused.
I'm talking. It's like nobody's talking back yet.
We couldn't hear you.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, we're back with Talking Preps, episode 2, season 2 for basketball. You got the whole crew: Coach Christy Mitchell, Coach Rick Lewis, who did the show on his honeymoon the last time. I mean, on his anniversary the last time.
Yeah.
Man, that's big, Mrs. Lewis. Thank you very much. I took care of her after you got done with our show. Gary Richmond is excited because the Cowboys won on Sunday.
Yeah, right.
We're gonna get a good draft pick. We got Randall Clark down the bottom. How you doing, Randall?
I'm good. Get ready for a little Steelers football here in a little bit.
All right, I got Alex Bass and Coach Jason Groove, and we're going to get right to it, guys. The big news this week was realignment. The State Association put out a new plan, 33 split conferences, up from 10 split conferences. The state's now divided evenly, 25, 25, 25. So how much tweaking is needed? And Coach Groove, we'll start with you.
I think they did a pretty good job. They kept the Charlotte schools together, the two 7-team conferences, and then our conference with 6, and then they only split conference. So I think that everybody looks at it from their own perspective with blinders on, and football coaches get upset because they look at teams that are in there now or teams that aren't in there. But they're looking at bigger issues, bigger things. So I think they did a pretty good job. I'm sure we'll get one more, or 2 more league divisions out, but this one isn't too bad in my opinion.
We hear a lot from football Coach Mitchell. From basketball coach perspective, we got Coach Groove's perspective. What's your perspective on the realignment?
I agree with Coach Groove. I think they did a pretty good job with keeping the Charlotte schools together and pretty much trying to be equitable. So, nobody's got a game, South Mech and North Mech in the same conference, or Huff and Independence. So you're not trying to get all the way across town, which, could be an hour on a bus. So I think they did a pretty good job with the Charlotte conferences for sure. Yeah. As far as the split conference thing, I'm not really sure about. There's, 2 teams in our conference that would be 3A.
Yeah.
So, that's always tough whenever you're the 3A school and you're playing all season long against the 4As. You have better competition. So whenever you hit the playoffs, then you'll definitely be more prepared.
Yeah. Alex, up in Raleigh, they split the 2 teams that have been longtime rivals. Talk about that a little bit, and what are your thoughts overall?
I'd like to take this opportunity to connect this realignment perspective, to connect what's happening in Raleigh with what's happening in Charlotte. We've just heard some tremendous insight in Charlotte, but I'd like to affirm the tremendous coaching lineage of Mr. Gary Richmond, which has a direct connection to the greater Raleigh area and ties into my realignment perspective here. That Coach Richmond's tremendous coaching lineage and the pressing style of his teams connects directly to a family member of his and a Raleigh legend. Coach Preston McLean, who was the legendary coach at Enlow High through 1990. And Coach McLean is smiling down from above on all of us, and I'm sure that he is as baffled as I am by the notion that Millbrook will not be in a conference with Enlow, Sanderson, and Broughton, the four oldest schools in Raleigh, right in the city, which have been aligned with each other for so very long. And Enlow opened in 1962, Millbrook in 1922, Broughton shortly thereafter. Broughton is Raleigh's Myers Park, more or less. And Sanderson in 1968 have been stalwarts in terms of the Raleigh schools that have been a quartet together. And it's unthinkable. I wonder what a great educator coach like the legendary Preston McLean would have to say about that. It's really unthinkable there. But beyond that, I think the NCHSAA did a tremendous job in terms of doing this very well. The split conferences are imperative because of the simple financial realities of high school athletics. And we have to do that because some of these rivalries have to be preserved. Richmond, Scotland, with Scotland dropping to 3A, that's integral to the financial solvency of both of those schools. So those,
Gary, is it the same, Gary, though, when you're playing your rival and you're not in the conference anymore, like A.L. Brown and Concord are playing week 1 and not week 10? Is that still the same?
Yeah. It is for a couple of years, but not long term. You know, people don't realize that, you know, in the 80s, the main rivalry in CMS was, you know, North Meck versus West Charlotte. Mm-hmm. And because so many schools have been added on the northern end of the county, or East Meck versus South Meck on the southern side of the county. So, you know, it kind of evolves over time. You know, realignment is only for 4 years. So maybe those kids entering the 9th grade will develop a rivalry. And then, you know, if the coaches stay and the programs stay the same as far as winning, it'll carry over. But, you know, it changes back and forth. Now, what Alex said in Raleigh, I do think is unique, but and I appreciate him bringing up my late uncle Preston McLean. But I know what he would say: line them up and we'll press them off.
The other news came out this week, and Rick, I want to start with you. 10 p.m. curfew for high school sports in North Carolina. Do you think that's going to have an effect?
I don't think so. I think most of the games, if you look at the time slots, most of the varsity teams are playing at 6 o'clock anyway. And, you know, like they have the JV, they're playing at the opposite school. So I really don't think the curfew is going to have any effect whatsoever. The only thing that it may come into play is when they're playing outside the area and it's a tournament where the tournament is, you know, they may have an 8 o'clock game that goes into 9:30 and they have to travel back. But from my understanding, if they're traveling back from an event, they're okay. But I don't see really any problem with the 10 p.m. curfew.
Now, Gary, and I've been in many games that didn't end till 11:30, 11:45, and that IMEC.
Yeah, but that's when you had 4 games at one site. So I think with them starting on time, you know, usually those games that got pushed back because the JV games took too long. And they don't have to worry about that with being at opposite sites this season. I just hope they stay with it on a permanent basis as far as the opposite site, so the kids can get home. You know, Fridays were okay, but Tuesdays could be rough if you ran and, you know, if you got behind schedule. So I don't think it's going to be a problem.
Yeah, Coach Groove, what about you? I mean, you're in IMEC now. You know, you've seen some of these late games as well. Do you think the new rule that they have in CMS to move varsity and JV to opposite sites, is that going to basically take care of this for us?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't see a lot of problem last year. One of the things I noticed was, you know, they were speeding up those JV games, and with that 3:30 start, honestly, we waited a few times for the girls to start between the varsity. So I think the officials did a pretty good job of, you know, the JV girls games go pretty fast. The JV boys games, you know, they took away the overtime and they allowed ties, which I'm not a big fan of. So they got done in about an hour. And I would say about half the time we were waiting more than warm-up time before the girls start. And, they don't start those games until 6. So this will alleviate any of those, long games on JVs. And we won't have to worry about 10 o'clock curfews, I don't believe. So we'll be in good shape.
I want to throw something. Go ahead.
I have a question for Coach Grube, Richmond, and Christy. What do you guys feel about not being able to see your JVs at all this season? Like, how do you feel about not being able to see your up and coming players, the future of all your teams with this new rule?
You want to go, Mitchell?
Well, I hate it. I hate it for two different reasons. I hate it because I have a JV son who plays JV boys basketball that I won't be able to see him play at all, as well as not being able to see my JV girls. Just being able to be in the gym and helping out the JV coach and just being able to see the kids every week. I mean, it's something big. I feel like that CMS needs to pay more basketball coaches. So right now, basketball has one JV coach stipend and one varsity coach stipend, and that's it. So, and normally your JV coach is one of your varsity assistants. So I kind of feel like that we got to come up with some plans to pay an additional coach for sure.
Our park has like 48 coaches on the bench with Scott Taylor. All those coaches are volunteer.
I guess so.
They're all
There's more coaches than players. I'm not lying.
We get one, but it comes down to numbers is what, because I asked that forever, how does that work? And it's because we have five players. Now, how many you choose to keep in addition to, so that's how they do it. You'll get, a soccer team with 11, they'll have a paid, head coach and a paid assistant coach. You have a JV team, you'll get a head coach and an assistant coach because of the numbers. But it is ridiculous. There's two things that are an issue there. You mentioned coaching. Girls might have, and the boys, depending on where you're at and the time of the day on travel, of getting back to be your assistant. I'm fortunate enough to have some community members that are volunteer coaches. They're outstanding, and I've always had that. And a couple of younger guys that want to aspire to, head coaching, so they want to put the time in. So I'm kind of fortunate there. But my JV coach is one that is going to have to. We play a Garinger. That's the one that sticks out in my mind. It's going to be the furthest away. He's going to have to play his game at 5 o'clock or 4:30, and then try to get to Huff to see us and help us. I'll watch film, but yeah, I'm right with you on the JV piece. I'll be honest with you. One of the things that I found over the last 10, 15 years is that when we have the JV guys, I sit on their bench and I'm on the end and I get a chance to play good cop. And I think that's a huge component of building a relationship with these kids. My JV coaches have all pretty much been head coaches later down the road. So they learn that, role of being a tough cop. And this is a great chance for me when they're young and there's no pressure is to, I calm down there and I'm talking to them calm, sensible. And because when I'm talking to my guys in our game, that's not the way it is. So it gives me a chance to, be a good cop. And I'm going to really miss that because so many relationships are developed with those kids at those early levels, 1 or 2 years with them. So I'm not, a fan of that. But again, we're talking about hopefully a once in a lifetime situation. If I had one way or the other, go back to the original way. But this is, like I said, an anomaly, I hope, in terms of what we're going through. But I'll sacrifice that to play this year.
Gary, I'm dying to know what you think.
I'm getting ready to be brutally honest. Okay, as good of programs that I had at the varsity level, my JV programs were, 500 at best, and I got to see enough of them in practice because we always practice at the same time that I didn't need to see it again in a game. Okay. So, that's one less day I had to look at them. Usually girls basketball, ninth grade girls, if they play JV, they're rarely going to be a star on the varsity. Most in girls basketball, your best players play varsity in the ninth grade. Whereas in boys, you develop from 9 through 12. Whereas girls, usually in the ninth grade if they're going to be a player or not. Okay, so most of your best ninth grade girls players are on the varsity anyway. And then the way you remedy that, if you can find a coach in the building that coaches another sport and they have their CDL, let them drive the JV to the game and let the JV coach drive their own car. So, for example, when the JV girls game is over, the JV coach can get in the car and be back to their own school by 6 p.m. Same thing with the boys. They can be back to their gym because they're still going to play early games earlier than the varsity games. So they have enough time if they are able to drive their own car to get back if you can find somebody to drive the JV bus.
I wanted to bring our first guest on, Chris Meadows, like Randall's one of the best trainers in the area. And I wanted to throw a question I didn't include in the message before the show. Keontae Johnson of Florida was an SEC potential player of the year. They're playing Florida State the other day, and I'm sure Coach Lewis, you saw this. I mean, he had COVID early in the year. He had an alley-oop dunk. He was over on the bench celebrating. They came out of timeout, and he just collapsed on the court. They think that it may have been COVID related. I'm just wondering, all of us are connected to basketball somehow or another. And Chris, I just want to get your thoughts. I mean, does that give you pause as a parent who has a daughter playing college basketball right now?
You know, I'm torn because you see how much these athletes worked in the offseason, and many of these same athletes had their season cut short last year. They couldn't finish their conference tournaments, and they couldn't play in the NCAA or NIT, and so it was a long grind. And the NCAA is giving this year basically a free pass. So with there being a vaccination that's just been released like today, that's being shipped, the majority of these athletes are probably going to be fine, but one is one too many. So for me, you know, I'm monitoring my daughter closely, and you know, the athlete in me, the coach, the trainer says, man, let them play. But the parent, you know, the more reasonable side says, you know, let's just do whatever we can to keep them safe. And I don't know that it means eliminating the games, but you know, other than testing, I think like my daughter's team and the other people I'm close to, they test 3 times per week. And you know, I don't know that we even know all the medical, you know, ramifications yet. And I don't know that it means stopping the play. I don't want to be, you know, diplomatic about it, but I just think there has to be a level of monitoring that ensures safety as much as possible, because you know, these young people want to play, but we also want them to stay healthy. And so I'm just thankful that the NCAA is giving this year a pass for those who do want to sit out.
Yeah. Coach Groove, at the high school level, being a high school coach, seeing something like that, what are your thoughts?
I mean, that's your worst case scenario, you know. I mean, that's, I think, we do all the training and CPR and first aid, and that's kind of the like you say, and that's the one you just fear. But I'll tell you, I feel like it's happened a lot over the summertime. I think there was a string of about every summer. It seemed like we had a kid collapse, and I know we lost several kids with just the irregularities and the heart arrhythmias. And I know that CMS really addressed that the last few years, probably 8 years running, with the Heart of a Champion. And that's that free physical they offer, where they actually give you the on the machine. If you're a first time, they put you on there. And I know that for a fact they've caught several of our kids over the few year period that had to get those checked out and found something in the heart that they could fix. And so, you know, not having that this year and with COVID, it exacerbates that situation. So, you know, you just like Mr. Meadows said there, you know, they want to play. I mean, a lot of these kids, you know, this is their identity, and they put a lot of time and effort into it, and have higher goals and lofty goals. But at the end of the day, you know, it's a game. It's really a game.
Yeah. Randall, the trainer's perspective.
I mean, number one thing for me whenever we're in the gym is just all about keeping everybody safe. So when you talk about things like this, I think I definitely pause, because, you know, I always, when I walk into a gym, the first thing I think of is how can somebody get hurt? And obviously this isn't a physical injury that you can see, but, you know, it's always alarming when you hear about someone going down, and, you know, you just never want to see it, especially at a time like this.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Chris, we wanted to have you on the show to discuss your new book. And you want to tell us a little bit about it and how long it took you to write it and what it's about?
Well, you know what? I appreciate being on the show, man. You got the best basketball minds in the city of Charlotte around here, man. You got Randall doing his thing, training for all these years, and the coach and Christy and Rick. It's an honor to be on. And one of the things that prompted me to even start the book was that all the years I've spent with player development, even when I first came out of college, coaching travel teams, high school teams. Every night it seemed like, and I'm not exaggerating, almost every night coming out, when I'm coming home, I might have been in whether it was a training session or a practice session, and I'm stuck in my garage when I get home from maybe 9 to 10, and I'm talking to different parents, I'm talking to players and talking to families, just helping them sort through this whole world of travel basketball, because I call it travel basketball, but high school basketball is all intertwined. So one night, my wife, I come in and she says, you need to just write a book. She says, you help a lot of kids, you help a lot of families, but you're repeating the same stuff. So instead of your local circle, this might be able to really help some people and give them some guidance and direction and just help them understand what it takes. And so, I started writing a book with a friend, Jeff Shears, and, he has a daughter who played at St. Joe's, another one who's at Detroit right now. And it was going a different direction. But I just thought to start, I wanted to offer something that really could help players and families say, you know what, there's a chapter on that. Like we open the book, the very first chapter is called Scholarships, Not Trophies. So if your child is serious about the game, who cares in the end if you won 5th grade AAU nationals? If you won 7th grade nationals? Honestly, the best players weren't even playing 7th grade. They were playing up. So, when you're really focused on, you think about the money, the time, think about the sacrifice. I mean, I traveled to Atlanta for 4 years straight to drive my daughter to play travel basketball. I know players who travel here every weekend from Columbia, South Carolina, from Raleigh. So it's not a player commitment, it's a family commitment. So when you're investing that type of time, those resources, you want to be able to make sure you don't get a do-over. So you want to be able to make sure that you're doing things the right way.
How can people get the book?
Well, right now we have a site, I Am D1, the book. We are pre-sales now. The book actually drops February 1st. We are in the process of, a lot of things have happened over the last week or so. I've had some major publishers reach out, major national, international media companies who are interested in just what the concept is. And so, we're going to stick with our February date because we feel like that's the coming down the hill in high school, maybe getting close to conference tournaments, end of the season with private schools, and just help families as they start to sort this thing out. And I think the book will be especially good for players and families because this year there may not be a live period for college coaches. So what do you do? Which events do you go to, or do you go to elite camps? What do you do? Is it about your mixtape? How do you get recruited? So just helping them with all those questions. We deal with that in the book.
You sound like Morris Day. It's in the book. Brandon, what you got?
Coach, can you tell us just a little bit about, like, as you're writing this book, how do you get to what chapter you want to, like, did you map it out of this is what I want to talk about? Or were there some certain situations where you go through something with a player or a family and you're like, I need to write about that?
Randall, great question, man. I appreciate that. There was a lot of thought that was put into this. My co-author, Jeff, he's written a book before, not on the basketball topic, but so he had the framework. So what we did is we sat down and I literally with him, we went through what the topics were going to be. It was like putting an outline together for a report. We went through the topics and then we broke them down under each topic. I really wanted to be specific, and I did not want this, Randall, to be a guide. Like, you don't need another guide. You don't need to tell you how to do something. I wanted this to be a book that was going to empower players and empower families and let them see what the options are. So what we did, to be very specific about your question, this book has stories in it that are all true, all real, but they're relevant. and then it tells you how to apply this to your situation. And also allows you to see what probably should be the priority. So what I focus on throughout almost every chapter, Randall, is that as a family, your goal every year, you should have a long-term plan. So if your child is serious about it, you should have a long-term plan, and then you map it out from there. And then that's a 1 year, and then you have to look at that thing again. Because, for example, in Langston, you've been through it. You have, your son's doing his thing at Notre Dame, and you got another one coming on the way. So here's an example. So let's say you go K through, start maybe 4th grade, you go through 6th, 7th grade, right? You play. Well, that's about being with good coaching, good development, like like what we do, player development, in a good environment. You teach them how to do things the right way. But as you transition, once you get to that high school, it exclusively becomes about exposure and scholarship. So now there's fewer left at the top. So there are fewer elite teams. So you don't want to be on a team where they're playing in the back court where no one's going, not even the parents. Some of those parents watch the other teams. They don't even watch their own games. So you want to be in a program, even if it's not a major shoe program, where that coach has relationships, where they can get those college coaches to your court. So a lot of parents are also afraid of competition. Well, there are 4 point guards on this team. Well, you know what? Devin Booker never started a game at Kentucky. Those things, if you play for certain programs, they don't understand that you're still going to be recruited if you come off the bench because of the quality of that program. Yeah. So helping parents understand it's better to maybe play 20 to 15 minutes instead of 40 minutes, a whole game, both halves, on a team where no one's watching and the competition is not a top court. Yeah. So they've never read or had someone really show them and give them examples about that. And so I have good examples in there too.
All right.
Yeah, I got a question for you. And I'll two pieces. Number one, there's been a lot of specialization. What are your thoughts about one sport, playing only basketball, if you have that aspiration? And B, do you talk about that in your book? Because I noticed one of the interesting stats from the NFL draft, I think it was 2 years ago, of the top 32, 28 were, multi-sport athletes.
That's a great question, Coach. Okay, so this question is, I deal with this indirectly. So if you play golf and basketball, you can identify. You play golf, you can't be elite if you don't do it every day. And I think players should play multiple sports, but there comes a time in basketball, especially if you're a point guard or a shooting guard, like let's say with football, if you're a good athlete with football, you can do everything helps you be better. Footwork, basketball, soccer. Like when I was growing up, I grew up in Tempe, Arizona. So all the players for Arizona State's football team, they lived in the basketball. They thought they wanted to be D1 basketball players, honestly. I think that was their alter ego. So they played ball every day. They wanted to play basketball, and it helped them be great. All those guys that got drafted from Arizona State literally played basketball all summer. But if you want to be an elite basketball player, once you get to a certain age, if you're not 6'9" and you big and athletic, it is so competitive now. If you see all of these small D1s and even upper D2s, they beat the D1s because the talent gap is not really big with the guards. The difference is with the bigs and wings. So if you're a guard and you wait to specialize, you're probably going to get left behind. Unfortunately, when I grew up, I didn't have to specialize. But in today's game where people train year round, I know kids who are serious right now and they waited too late. Like literally, I look at them and it's too late because they're juniors. And unless you're going to play NAI, it's too late because the skill set, the mentality, and the IQ, you can't catch that up in 2 to 3 years. Yeah. You can go to a game right now and see a 7th grader, 8th grader. Now, you might not be a skill, but you could say they have it, and they can get skilled. Like NBA players get skilled. But if you wait too late, you got to specialize with basketball, especially if you're a guard or a skill, like a really skilled player. You have to specialize.
That's a tough thing for a lot of parents, but I think that's going to be a really interesting read. Again, the book is I Am D1. It comes out February.
Yes, February, and it'll be available on Amazon, and we'll have retailers as well. And the subtitle is How to Conquer the World of Travel Basketball.
How to Conquer the World of Travel Basketball. Well, Coach Meadows, appreciate you coming on, my man.
Thank you, Langston. Appreciate it, guys.
All right, take care.
Okay.
All right, Gary. Now we're going to bring in somebody that you know pretty well.
Yeah, we're gonna
I
bring
hope he's in the middle of the screen.
Yeah,
this young man here, Jupiter Wilson, again, I'm going to get out and let you take it over. But Jupiter Wilson played at Carolina. I met him because he was losing like 900 pounds a week a couple of years ago. And I went out, he was doing these boot camp workouts at 6 in the morning. I'm like, I don't want no parts of that. And then you have a great season at Hickory Ridge. And what do you decide to do? You decide you want to coach girls basketball and football at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Probably a little crazy right now.
What'd your wife think when you told her that?
She was prepared. When I was at my old high school at Hickory High School in Chesapeake, I was the head boys and head football coach there for 3 years. So it wasn't something that she wasn't used to. She actually told me to go for it. What's it going to be like this year because the sports overlap? Who's going to be coaching what? This is probably going to be the toughest year, honestly. When I in my mindset I was going to do it, I was looking from the standpoint of, hey, in the summertime, I'll do football in the morning and basketball in the evening. And then once the season started, my girls would, take my weightlifting class, and then I would have them probably once or twice after school and a couple times before school. But with the whole COVID deal, it's changed a little bit about how I, approach it. So pretty much after school, I'll see my football kids from about 2:30 to about 4:15. Take about a 10-minute break, maybe 15, and my girls start arriving to school about 4:30, and we'll go from about 4:40 to about 6:40. So that's been every day, Monday through Friday, with a little bit of a break on a Friday because I don't have the football kids. But it has definitely been a grind.
Well, let me give them a little bit of background about the two of us. I saw you years ago when you were the offensive coordinator at Vance, and y'all were playing Mallard Creek in a state playoff game, and you flat out coached the Mallard Creek staff, and Vance upset Mallard Creek. And I was at that game, and I said, that guy can coach. He can coach. He's going to be a head coach somewhere. So fast forward, you go back home to Virginia, and you stay there a few years. And then 2 years ago, you come back and you work as an assistant at Hickory Ridge with Sam Griner. And I think we met at Mr. Charles Chicken and Fish.
Yep,
and then Sam stepped down at Hickory Ridge, and you know how coaches talk. I'm substituting at Hopewell High School, and Coach Bird says, you hear Jupiter Wilson got the job at Hickory Ridge. And I'm like, really? He said, yeah, but he don't have enough assistants. I was like, well, God, Hickory Ridge is 5 miles from my house, and I'm flat out bored. I said, and I gave you a call.
Yeah.
And I volunteered my services, and I got back on the football field for the first time in like 4 years. And I watched you as a coach, and you just get it. You coach the whole kid. You know, you let your assistants deal with technique and fundamentals, but you coach the whole kid. Life lessons, accountability, punctuality, academics, dependability, all of these things that, you know, not enough coaches do nowadays. You coach the whole kids, and you let your assistants handle the X and O's. And when need be, of course, you manage the games, timeouts, and you're a great fourth down coach. You know, you like going forward on fourth, and you won't hesitate to say, hey, we're going for this, coach. And everybody's like, well, we're going to you. Like, I got it. And most of the time you got it. And so, you know, as it relates to basketball, I told you after football season, I say I enjoy coaching, but you know, I hate practice, and I'm gonna step down. I'll hang around on Friday night, and shortly after that, we're sitting in the gym, and I'm listening to you talk about basketball. We're at basketball games last winter, and you're talking. I say, oh, he thinks like I do in basketball too. And so the girls' job comes open at Hickory Ridge, and I say, wow, Jupe, you ought to go for it. And you're like, You think so? And I was like, yeah, go for it. And you said, all right, I think I am. And then you got me again. You said, will you help me?
Yep.
And so I'm back in the gym with Jupiter. I thought I was away from him on the football field, but now I'm back with him in the gym, and we're having a ball. And I just love the way you coach and how you coach the whole kid, and you let your sisters handle the fundamentals and the X and O's and step in where you need to. But earlier we were talking about realignment,
Right?
And we talked about it from a CMS perspective. Give it to us. What's the feeling of coaches in Cabarrus County or Union County or Iredell County who are tied in with CMS? And so many of CMS decisions, we have to understand, affect surrounding counties. Give us the Cabarrus County perspective.
So from my perspective, we had got a preliminary, or coaches talk, ADs talk, and there was a idea that we we're going to have 4 Cabarrus County schools plus the northern IMEX schools minus Vance. And when I heard that, I was actually excited. So 4 Cabarrus County schools, we would play Mallet Creek, Huff, those type of deals. But I know it probably wasn't advantageous for Vance High School because of the losing out on Mallet Creek, because they were going to technically replace us in the Southwestern 4A. I think some of our coaches in Cabarrus County were excited about getting away from the CMS schools and then able to play the Iredell schools. And I've heard that, hey, whether it be Lake Norman and Mooresville and them, were excited. For me personally, I'm kind of torn. I definitely like playing somebody new, and I think that'd be fresh, refreshing. But I was actually looking forward to some of the rivals that I could have had in the CMS schools. I think my biggest frustration with the realignment, because they talked about the equity and travel stuff, is where we were. Our furthest trip was probably 35 minutes. We could have been a 4A, 3A conference with Central Cabarrus, and those type of deals would have been the same thing. But they put us in a 4A conference where we got to drive probably an hour and 15 minutes on a Tuesday and Friday night to go to South Iredell. And so in that regard, I felt like the CMS schools kind of got what they wanted. For the most part, the Cabarrus County schools, from the coaches and stuff I talked to, seem to be pretty excited about it. But for me personally, I'm not as excited about making a hour and 10-minute trip to go to South Iredell on a Tuesday. For football will probably be the easiest one, just because it's just once a week. But you turn around, you got that Thursday night game the next year. But basketball and track, because I coach those are not going to be good trips in terms of just time and distance.
Alex, what you got for him?
I think the beautiful thing that we're seeing here is, yes, we can talk about the ins and outs of how this realignment is going to work. We see some more advantageous situations, more so than others. I think we all know that. But I think the real story here, as Gary explained so well, and as Jupiter explained, that if you want to put this together here, what we're seeing here and what we're going to see here, particularly this year and beyond, is an epitomic witness to the legacy of how high school athletics thrive from one generation to another. It's so beautiful and so edifying to see what Coach Wilson is doing in terms of being a cultivar of young people, young men and young women, particularly in this pandemic situation, and obviously going forward too. But what we're seeing right here is there is power in the multi-generational legacy extending celebration of high school athletics we're seeing here. You look at the relationship between Coach Wilson and Coach Richmond right here, and I want to take it back a step further. So we're talking 3 generations right here. The inspiration that Coach Richmond drew from Coach Preston McLean, a tremendous educator in his own right, who extended his own legacy well beyond his coaching days, and was also, I know many people might not realize that he was a legendary SAT testing administrator for so many years as well. So that integration of academics and athletics, that carries from one generation to another. So a boys basketball coach and SAT administrator, passing that on to his nephew, Gary Richmond, who was a very successful women's basketball coach and educator, continued substitute teaching in retirement, so continuing to contribute as well. So we see the blend of education and athletics. beyond retirement from coaching. And now we have Coach Richmond passing that on to yet another generation in Coach Wilson right here, who is embracing the opportunity with young men and young women. And you hear how Coach Wilson spoke about how he has his women's basketball players in his weight training class. And we all know he's got a lot of his football student athletes in there. How beautiful the competition, the friendly competition we see first and foremost in the classroom, and how that competition in the traditional classroom lays a foundation for academic success and the pursuit and achievement of excellence that carries over from the traditional classroom to the basketball court to the football field, which are learning communities as well, all brought together under the leadership and molding young people, young men and young women of Coach Wilson.
Right.
How in the world can we not celebrate the way that these young people compete healthily with each other in the classroom so as to encourage each other's competitive pursuits on the field? And then we all win and create, as the NCHSAA says, a memory forever. Those are forever memories spanning 3 generations right there. This is absolutely beautiful. And anyone who can't get on board with this 3-generation celebration of high school athletics, then you don't like anything.
I don't mean to interrupt y'all's like honeymoon or whatever it is going on right here. I just had a question because I saw my man Sam Howell score a touchdown yesterday and go from here to here. I just want to hear Jupiter and Gary what y'all think about the Tar Heels, and I'm gonna get out of here.
We were together yesterday, actually watching, man. That was for me personally, that was great times, man. Just seeing the evolution of what Coach Matt Brown. He offered me a scholarship my junior year at when I was at Hickory. I decided to go there based on what happened his '97 season, and then stayed and followed through. And he came back through a couple years ago, recruiting one of our kids, Garrett Williams, and just to see what he's done in 2 years is just remarkable. And just to see the epitome of that, manifest itself on Saturday night was awesome. The only thing that makes me mad, and I said it as we were watching the game, makes me upset about that Florida State Virginia game, that if we win that game like we do, we could be possibly talking about getting into the college football playoff. But we take these steps. You're sitting at 8-3 and got a chance to hopefully go to the Orange Bowl and finish with 9 wins.
Well, Juke, this summer, after you got the job in basketball, and we were still in shutdown, we would get together every morning and work out and go walking. And you laid out to me your plan for how you were going to do basketball and football, and especially when they merged together around the same time in November. And I told you how I used to do it, in my career when I was coaching football and basketball at the same time. What are your feelings now that the schedule is reversed? How should, and you don't have to worry about it as much coaching girls as you would a boys basketball, but what are your feelings about now making the football coaches, or how should football coaches handle players that are playing basketball, but they're also football players? How would you handle that? And how do you think that's going to play itself out this year? Because usually basketball follows football, and the basketball coach has to wait. This year, the football coach is going to have to wait. How do you see that playing out?
So for right now, and I'll just think about Hickory Ridge. We got about 3 or 4 freshmen, sophomores that are playing either JV or varsity basketball with the Hickory Ridge team. So up until we started basketball practice, they would come maybe once or twice a week. And as of right now, as basketball season started, I pretty much have just told myself and told our coaches that we won't be able to see the kids pretty much until the football season. And I think as the other guy was talking, the coach that was talking about the D1 stuff and about his book, the only thing that probably hurts for the most part, honestly, is probably a position like quarterback. And I got a kid that plays quarterback that's a power forward on that Hickory Ridge team that's going to be really, really good. But for the rest of the athletes up there, for the most part, they're playing guard, they're playing forward, whatever, and they're going to come out there and play wide receiver, running back, or whatever the case may be. Basketball is going to keep them in shape. they'll be a little bit behind in terms of some of the intricacies of what we do. But for the most part, because this is year number 2 for me and I haven't changed much, it's going to be okay for them. I think from a whole, what I'm seeing across CMS and Union County, a lot of the kids that are playing football are football kids first. And so where maybe from my standpoint, I may not see them, I've heard from other coaches where those kids will say, hey, basketball, even though basketball is in season first, football is going to come important. So I'm going to do both sports. And if a game is happening on a Friday night, I'm going to make sure I can play in that game. And if that means missing a Friday night practice, and I'm assuming for a basketball playoff game, they're going to go, do that Friday night game. But for the most part, talking to some of the ADs and CMS, they've kind of just told those coaches, hey, the kids have the opportunity and the right to play both sports. So you just make sure that you can create a schedule for them to do it.
Alex, you got a question for Juke?
So what do you see as the biggest opportunities that can come out of, we're in an unprecedented situation here, but you have a great situation, what I think is the best of both worlds in terms of how you can work with young men and young women. There's a lot of schedule balancing, but what do you see as possibly the best or strongest thing that can come out of this unprecedented situation that can be we carry it forward kind of deal in terms of building the legacy of what you're trying to do at Hickory Ridge? Take an unprecedented situation and say, what can we get out of this to carry it forward beyond this year?
I go back to I think it was my 3rd or 4th year at Hickory High School, which is in Chesapeake. And one of the guys was on my football staff. His name is Lou Johnston, a great coach, wing T guy. And he said, Jupiter, what's your coaching philosophy? And I was, responding to him, hey, we run the wing T, we run the buck sweep, whatever the case may be. And he's like, no, what is your coaching philosophy? And I didn't understand what he meant by that. And he's like, what is it that you want to make sure that when you're done coaching or you're done with that team, that they know what you stood by? And I never had really thought about it like that. So when Coach Richmond was talking about, coach having a plan and trying to talk to the total person, I really took that to heart when I got to Hickory Ridge. And I said, if I ever became a head coach again, these are some of the things that I will implement. And right now, with basketball coming, I told Coach Shepard, who's one of my other assistants, dealing with some of these young ladies on our team, some of them, in this pandemic, some loneliness things are happening. Some of them dealing with broken homes. And I've always kind of told myself, hey, man, you can just coach football or just coach basketball. But what I'm starting to see, no matter what you do and how hard you just try to coach that sport, is always about those long-lasting relationships. So, for me personally, something that don't really, I haven't really done because I do it. But, one of the young ladies had a birthday and, just wanted to make sure that as a coach, she understood for me, I'm just coaching the total person. So, I went to, Walmart, Harris Teeter, whatever, got her a gift card, got her, something, and drove it to her house because she's gone through a little bit of a tough experience this, during this pandemic, but even some other things that are going on. And I just want those young ladies and those young men to know that I care about them more than whatever game that they'll ever play for me. And once you do that, once you get back onto that court, they'll bust a door open for you. But that's just for me and genuine how I go about doing my business every day.
Well, Juke, I'm going to ask you the question that was asked of me for 20 years, and this will be our last one. We'll get this wrapped up. But what's the difference between coaching boys in football and girls in basketball? I used to get that question all the time. So now I want to hear somebody else answer.
It's I think for the most part, guys, in terms of the emotional stability, are kind of more the same. In actuality, a lot of times when I'm dealing with the females, they take a lot more than I could probably give my guys, but you're going to have more up and down of the emotional things that I'm going to get from my guys. So for my girls, I'm pretty hard on them about how I go about practice and hold them accountable. And I would say for the most part, all those girls are responding, but you're going to have a few that are going to be up and down more than what I've ever experienced with the guys. So, a lot of times people say the girls aren't tough. Man, these girls are tough, man. They take it. They don't encumber. They don't get upset. They just kind of take it, where my guys would probably snicker a little bit more. But with my females, I would probably have one or two that are a little bit more up and down on that scale. But I'm enjoying coaching it. I'm enjoying, working with these young ladies, and I look forward to having a great season with them.
All right, Jude. We thank you for being on tonight, and I know we're both excited about the season, and look forward to big things coming out of Hickory Ridge in girls basketball as well as football.
Yep, me too.
Now,
Man.
everybody, what you've all been waiting for, the truth and nothing but the truth. Turn this off.
We missed an opportunity. Still, we have an opportunity. Sadly, one thing growing seemingly at a rate comparable to North Carolina's COVID-19 metrics are high school coaches' concerns about student athletes' spring semester ineligibilities. We must be honest and acknowledge students' vastly varying socioeconomic statuses. These realities create beyond stratifying circumstances for schools and school systems. Still, we missed opportunities to affirm and reaffirm school as a routine or practice rather than an endeavor aligned exclusively to a brick and mortar building. Some student athletes will not compete for their schools during this 2020-21 academic year. Therein is a tough, valuable lesson of education-based athletics. This truth underscores my disappointment that conversations about resuming school year out-of-season voluntary workouts were not accompanied by discussions about coaches organizing student athletes for appropriately distanced study halls before workouts. Forthcoming basketball and football seasons offer North Carolina's teacher coaches chances to emerge as beacons for a new coach's education. Specifically, coaches may make scheduled on-site study hall participation a requisite for team membership. Head and assistant coaches may assume responsibilities for monitoring and meeting with a handful of student athletes. Study halls will facilitate coaches' Google Classroom and PowerSchool checks for student athletes' academic progress, technology and other learning resources acquisitions, behavioral and emotional support, and focused schoolwork time. Student athletes find ways to get to campus for voluntary training and competition. Student athletes, when required, will find ways to achieve academic excellence with regular study halls among their regiments. May teacher coaches and student athletes partner in active two-way teaching and learning through required in-person team study halls. Like regularly scheduled game film sessions, victories' seeds are sown by students' daily commitments to excellence in traditional classrooms. May these classrooms become common origins for teacher, coaches, and student athletes' shared journeys for turning out trophies and turning over mortarboard tassels this spring. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Alex. Well, Micah, you got a lot of compliments on your first week on the show. You did a great job, but I know probably your two biggest critics are your two big sisters. What did they think about last week's interviews?
Wow. So they were really impressed. Like I said, they've been surprisingly more supportive with this than anything else. Kanika, she just told me, stop being nervous. You know this information. Just be confident within yourself. And Boo just was like, good job. I'm happy you finally found your passion and what you want to do. So, yeah.
Yeah. I would bet Kanika is more on the details and Boo was like, whatever.
Yeah, definitely. Kanika was like, I can tell you were nervous. You just breathe and then go right into it. You got it. Next interview, do better. And it's like, okay, I got you. I'll try, definitely. And Boo, like she's just like, all right, that's good. Just send me the next one.
Well, good. Who you got for us this week?
All right. So I interviewed Ben from Carmel High School, 6'8", forward, really good basketball player. He reminds me so much of Tim Duncan. He's just a really great player, but he's a silent assassin, I want to say. He doesn't do much showboating on the court. He's fundamental, and I don't know. He's just a really good player. I didn't even realize how many points he had until after the game because it just didn't seem like he was doing all of that in just that short amount of time. So he's a great player, really shy kid, but I interviewed Ben.
Okay, let's see what you got. Take it away, Work.
Yeah.
Hello, everybody. This is Micah Drakeford here, about to interview Ben Burnham. He is a Winthrop University commit and also one of the starters for Carmel Christian High School. How are you doing today?
Good.
So, what was your mindset at the beginning of the season?
My mindset was just play defense, like Coach Badgett tells us to, and then the offense will come with it. And I just go out there and try to play hard and play with my teammates as well as possible.
And just in 5 games, you are averaging 19.4 points and 9.8 rebounds. You're almost at a double-double. What was one of your goals before the season started?
My goal, our main goal is just to win the championship. Yeah.
That's it. And do you consider yourself a two-way player?
I do because I love the block shots, and I do need to work on moving my feet on defense a little bit, but I love the block shots.
And as a two-way player, what NBA player do you look up to?
I look up to Giannis, and I look up to Zach LaVine. He's one of my favorite players.
Great job. Quiet guy.
He's very quiet. I was like, yo, I understand. I don't like talking in front of people either. And he's really a great player, hustle on both ends. I was really impressed with his game.
He's really athletic. He is quiet. It's very easy to go watch him play a basketball game and not realize his impact until you look at the stat sheet after the game and it's filled up.
Yes, I was so amazed. I'm like, wow, he did all of that. Like, I was amazed with it. I was so impressed. He's a good
100%.
player. They got a good killer coming to Wichita for sure.
Yeah, I agree. Well, I appreciate that. We'll get started. I think Coach Mitchell. There we go. I think we had a couple little technical difficulties. All right. I'm the 1RC. I'm joined by Coach Mitchell and Coach Lewis right now. And we're going to get started with their watch list. So, Coach Mitchell, let's start with you. And what do you got for us this week?
So I have a disclaimer that I feel a little bit out of the loop this year. Normally by this time of the season, I have seen dozens of teams and even more kids, whether it was at a Providence Day Super Saturday or LBI preseason jamboree, where you're able to see 50 teams at one time, or you've actually played some games. So I'm feeling a little bit out of the loop, and but I do have a couple fresh faces, some freshmen that have started to create some buzz around the Charlotte area. So my watch list has not changed, or my top 5 has not changed right now. And I do think that once the public schools start playing, then we're possibly going to get some shifting in there. But my fresh faces are Reese Wilson from Myers Park, Ella Hobbs from J.M. Robinson, Blanca Thomas from Charlotte Catholic, and Kaylee Carson from Independence. I have seen each one of these players in the past. It could have been a year ago, but I have seen all of the players. And the ones that, freshmen that are coming in that are just, automatically they're making a difference in their team. I think the biggest difference maker for her team this year is going to be Ella Hobbs from J.M. Robinson. Coming from a 2-21 last season, I mean, this player automatically is going to make that team 10 times more competitive. But those are my fresh faces for the girl on the girls' side, and I think that, you know, of course, each one of these are public school girls. So whenever we get our season going in January, I think they're going to show us a lot of good things.
I think I like that list. Wilson, obviously, at Myers Park, she can really shoot the ball well. Blanca Thomas will be very good for Charlotte Catholic. She can block shots. She finishes well around the rim, and she runs like a deer. Plus, I heard her AAU coach is really, really good. Also, you know, Ella Hobbs, another 6'4", you know, she's dominant on both ends of the floor. And I think, you know, that 2-21 record, you know, will definitely, the wins will go up over there. And Kaylee Carson, you know, who else you mentioned, I said that she's going to be the X factor at Independence. Obviously, we know what Braylon's going to do. We know what Jessica's going to do. But I think Carson is going to be the one that's really going to be able to sneak on some people and help Independence make a deep run in the playoffs.
Absolutely. I agree.
Yeah. Coach Lewis.
Yes, sir.
How are you, sir? What do you got for us tonight? I'm doing well.
Well, I want to preface this. I usually don't have a top 5 rankings as far as freshmen, but we usually wait till they're at least sophomores. But Langston wanted me to give the top 5 as far as in the state, so I'm going to give it a shot.
There you go. Well, listen. I see who you're starting with, so you start with that kid, and you're in good hands right now.
Well, 6'4", Joshine Felton, Westminster Catawba, the clear choice for the number 1 top spot. That's a no-brainer. That's a pretty easy one to decide on. Felton has a complete package. He's fundamentally sound. He has a college-ready frame. He has great basketball skill set, athleticism, a matching IQ, but the most important thing about him is he is a leader on the court. I'm just impressed with the poise and maturity he displays every time he steps on the court. And let's talk about a young guy who's going into his freshman year, already sports offers from Ole Miss, Kansas, South Alabama, and Wake Forest. And also for the year, early in the season, we're talking about a young man as a freshman playing on a very talented Westchester Catawba team. He's averaging 18 points a game, 4 rebounds, 3.5 assists. Pretty impressive numbers for a freshman. He makes that team go.
No, for sure. And I love Mr. Felton just because he's a worker. And a lot of people don't, you know, you see all the accolades and the offers as a freshman before you play your first high school game, and I get it. But the kid was in the gym 2-3 times a day. He leaves one workout and goes to another workout, and then he'll leave that workout and go to another workout. You know, the work that he put in this off season, he didn't waste his COVID time at all. Yeah. So everything that he's getting right now that the lights are starting to shine and they're shining pretty bright, you know, he deserves wholeheartedly.
When you watch him play, you think he's a senior going to a Power 5 school, and he's just a freshman. Next on my list is 6'3" Zion Walker from the Burlington School. And again, the Burlington School is one of the top teams in the state, and he's having a major impact. We're talking about a 6'3" combo guard who's strong, he's athletic, he's explosive, but he also has the matching skill set. Next on my list is 6'8" Braden Crump of Winston-Salem Christian. Now, I'm not saying he's Christian Leitner, but when you watch him play, his play will resemble Christian Leitner at the high school level. We're talking about a 6'8", mobile, very fluid wing who has the opportunity to step out and hit consistent three-pointers with total efficiency. He has a complete package. He has a high IQ, great feel for the game. Next on my list is a young man also from the Charlotte area, and we've mentioned him before, and that's 6'4" Bishop Boswell from South Mecklenburg. Again, I said last week, he reminds me a little bit of Jalen Hood-Schifino. He's 6'4", he's strong, he's sturdy, he is very poised, very mature. He may be a little bit more advanced offensively than what Jalen Hood-Schifino was at the time. He has a really good shooting technique, fundamentally sound with his extension and follow through. He will have to improve his defensive lateral quickness. That's the next step in his development. But I expect big things for him at South Meck. He is so poised and mature. And last on my list is a dark horse. And a lot of people will be surprised by this one. When you look at Vance, they lost a lot of talent, through the transfer. But with this young man, Vance came in under Team 704 won the inaugural Hoop State Championship, and they beat some very talented teams. And they have Daniel Sanford, but in that particular championship game, Sanford got into foul trouble and didn't have his best game, but the guy who stepped up was 6'6" Mario Hansen of Vance. He's strong. He has good hands, good footwork in the post, and he can take your man out on the perimeter and knock down the perimeter jump shot. So those are my top 5 for the time being. And of course, this will change as they develop and grow from freshmen to sophomores, and then sophomores to juniors, and juniors to seniors.
I know you haven't got to see Sir Muhammad yet, so I can't wait till you get to see Myers Park and see see his skill set. He's a kid that he hasn't played on the circuit, so I know a lot of people haven't seen him, but I'm excited to see what your thoughts are when you do get to see him.
Yeah, and the one thing I want to just emphasize and preface with, these are kids that I've seen multiple times in quality settings. I'm not going to put somebody on the list that I may have seen once in a camp setting. I like to see a player in a camp setting, travel ball setting, or in a high school setting. And the thing about all these guys that I mentioned here, if you look at Felton, Walker, Crump, and those guys have already competed and are having a good year for the private school. On the public school side, I've watched both Bishop Boswell and Mario Hansen at team camps and also our fall league. They're going to be outstanding.
Coach, what about your player of the year to watch list? You have that for us as well?
Well, I did a little segment in. Let me just go through it. I sort of changed it up just a tad. I did what I call a top newcomers to the area. And these are some players that a lot of people don't know about yet, but will. Victory Christian has 2 young men that already has mid to high major offers. They have 6'6" junior Luis Diarte, who is a point guard, and he has an offer from Illinois, Washington State, and a host of mid-major schools. But the guy who's really going to be impressive for them is 6'8" Randy Ovali, and he also has some mid-major and high-major offers like Illinois and Washington State and a host of others. They're newcomers to the area for Victory Christian, and watch out for Victory Christian because they're going to be a team to contend with down the road. My next segment I had, Coach, was my stock risers. These are young men that I think their stock is going to really increase. And the one guy, and you know, we talked about him last year, he played at Myers Park, Xavier McKelvey. He is having a phenomenal year at United Faith. He's reclassed. He's now in the 2022 class. He's already getting interest from some mid to high major schools. I've been impressed with him because he's a strong, explosive guard. He's very smooth. So far this year, he's averaging 22 points a game, 8 rebounds, 3 assists, and 2 steals and 2 block shots so far for the United Faith. Tremendous number. So I expect his stock to go up tremendously. The next guy that I have up there is a guy that also was at Northside Christian that transferred to Westchester Catawba, and that's 6'4" junior MJ Collins. I expect his recruitment to go through the roof as well. He was really tremendous at the Battle of the Rock. And when I think they beat, was it Cannon by 2 points?
Yeah.
That was a really good game. MJ was extremely good, but he has a unique blend of athleticism, length, and also a matching skill set. And he's averaging almost 18 points a game and 6 rebounds. So those are my guys that are my stock risers. And then I had another little segment here called.
Hold on. I think this one. I think this is the one I was waiting for. I didn't know you had those other ones, Coach. But I think we got theme music and everything, so I want to make sure we get you your due credit. I think this is Rick's key top guys right here. So hit the music for me, please. There we go.
Well, advanced beyond his years is a guard over at Covenant Day, Aiden Holloway. Aiden Holloway, nicknamed Biscuit. He has to be one of the most skilled point guards I've seen in some time. He's not as explosive and athletic as some of the other point guards in the class, but the one thing about him is he may be the most fundamentally sound. has one of the best feels for the game that you've seen for a long time. He has a great basketball IQ, and he's a leader on the court. He's averaging 22.3 points a game, 4.3 rebounds, and 3.5 assists, and over 3 steals per game. He does it in a quiet way, and I love his mannerism on the court. He is a quiet leader. He leads by example, and I've been very, very impressed with him. We've already mentioned Josheen Felton. Like I said, it's hard to believe he's just a freshman. He plays like a seasoned veteran, and he's averaging 18 points a game, 4 rebounds, and 3 assists. And, of course, you can't leave out Robert Dillingham, who I think is one of the most electric players in the country. Dillingham has it all. He's quick. He's athletic. He can handle. He can shoot. To me, and I said it before, in my opinion, he's the number 1 player in the North Carolina class for his 2023.
You know, the interesting part about all 3 of the players that you just named is they're all so even keel. None of them get too high. None of them get too low. They really just stay the same all the time, whether things are good or bad. And mentioning Aiden Holloway, definitely want to give a shout out to his sister, Mila. Mila scored 30 points for Covenant Day. She's a freshman over there, and she's definitely someone to keep your eye on because she can fill it up just like her big brother.
Randall, and you raise an interesting point. When you watch these 3 guys play at the point guard position, they're so poised and mature, and that's the most impressive thing about them. They're just great leaders on the court, and that's what I like watching about them more than anything else.
They're great leaders, and they don't have a whole lot to say, which is not normal with kids nowadays.
Absolutely correct.
Well, this has been wonderful right here, and we want to thank one of the all-time leading experts, as always, the one and only Rick Lewis, for his participation here this evening and his tremendous insight. And as we talk about excellence on the young men's side, so too do we have excellence on the young women's side. And we're going to talk women's basketball in the zone. 21st century women's basketball taller players. They can play in the paint. They can play behind the arc. And for the latest insight on them all, we turn to Sir Randall Clark. So, fresh faces. Randall, what you got for us this week?
Well, Coach Mitchell and I already talked about some of these. This week, I'm going to cover post and wings. And then next week, I'll come back and we'll talk about some of the guards. And I'm just going to mention them briefly because, like I said, we've already talked to them. Post players as far as Ella Hobbs, 6'4", Jam Robinson. She's going to be a stud. Blanca Thomas is Charlotte Catholic, 6'4", runs like a deer, finishes on both ends of the floor, and does a great job protecting the basket. Sarah Strong is the one that a lot of people might not know of. She's 6'3". She can step out the perimeter. She can shoot it. She can handle it. She literally is a 5-tool basketball player and just a load. And it's so fun to watch her play, especially when I'm not coaching against her. Olivia Burke is a left-handed wing from Porter Ridge who is really athletic. She finishes great around the rim and is really a 3-level scorer, which for me as a coach is really important. It makes her really, really hard to guard. And again, finish it off, Kaylee Carson, Independence, the X Factor. That's what I'm going to call her this year.
Well, we look forward to watching all these young ladies compete when we get to a season, so long as all of us mask up to make it happen. I want to talk a little more about something which I touched on earlier about the eligibility issue of this season. I think we all know where I stand on that. And I'd like to get insight from each of you because it's a unique perspective that we all have. So Randall, Christy, Gary, I mean, that's something that always has been a tenet of everything all of you have done. So, I mean, there's really, that was never going to be an issue because you didn't allow it to become issues. So I guess what I'm asking you to do is step away from your own perspectives for a second and the fact that academic excellence is understood in all that you have done and all that you do. CMS is waiving the 2.0 GPA rule for this year in this pandemic. Good thing, or do we hold kids accountable still, even in remote learning? Chris, you want to go first?
Sure, that's a really difficult question because I can see both sides of it. I can see the student athlete that has had challenges at home, whether it's technical difficulties, whether it's their parents are working and you have several siblings at the house and you're trying to help them log on to school and you're trying to do other things. So, I can see both sides of it. I am of a coach that looks in Power School and sends my girls text messages and say, hey, what's going on in this class? Do you need some help? If it gets below a C, I'm on them. But it's not always that easy. It's not always just holding your kids accountable to the same expectations we had before COVID, because we all know that before COVID, this was a lot easier. 2019 was a lot easier than 2020 in all aspects. So, but I also feel like that we're, hopefully we're not setting the kids up for failure in the future, because if you aren't getting your schoolwork done now, whenever we start getting further along, CMS isn't always going to waive the 2.0 rule. I mean, they're not going to do that. And if they did that, then we're not going to have kids that are getting through the clearinghouse to be able to play college sports. So I think that it's a double-edged sword. You want to be sympathetic and give kids grace and help them out, because that there's kids that are truly struggling at home. They're struggling in the virtual environment. It's hard to learn and to teach this way. But at the same time, you want to make sure that these kids are prepared for what's coming next, whether that's, their junior year in high school, their senior year in high school, their freshman year in college, or wherever they are. You want to make sure that you're still keeping them accountable. So there's a thin line right there.
Gary, I want to go to you, and I'll ask you to add to your perspective, as we've spoken extensively in this show, the great multi-generational lineage that you have and the perspective that you can offer. So I'll talk from your perspective, and the good coach smiling down on all of us tonight, who was, obviously more than a mentor for you. What would he say about this? How has that formed where you are on this, given your commitment to academics and athletics?
Well, I concur with everything that Chrissy just said. And the only thing that I would be concerned about is, are the kids actually putting in an effort? As a substitute teacher, one of my assignments that I've been given at a particular school is they have asked me to call the parents of students that are failing. And I've heard a wide array of reasoning as to why they're failing. But the one thing that always concerns me is the number of absences that they have. I've seen kids that have 20, 30, 40 absences this semester. And I don't think you can just say we'll waive the 2.0 and you got a kid that has not made an effort. I can understand that they don't have access to one-on-one instruction with teachers like they used to, or tutoring or peer tutoring, and everybody's not a visual learner, and they don't have textbooks and all of those kind of learning differences that they may run into because of remote learning. But if the kids are just not signing on, they haven't email the teacher saying, hey, I can't get in, or I don't understand, or I can't log on, and things like that. I think that's what concerns me, that we may be rewarding kids who've not even tried. If they've had technology issues and the other issues that Christy spoke about, I'm sympathetic, empathetic to that, but not for the kid who just hasn't tried at all.
Randall, so you're in a unique situation, given the training perspective that you have, and get to work with student athletes across a lot of schools. How do you balance the fact that we all know that you support the work that these coaches do, first from a classroom perspective, and people who might try to pigeonhole what you do and say, well, this is basketball skill development, but we know you're about the total deal. How do you balance all that out and try to manipulate this?
This situation has actually been very unique. And one of the reasons why it's been so unique is because I had a situation where a kid actually had straight A's. He's a straight A student. And they went to online, and all of a sudden he's C's and D's and missing assignments and stuff not getting turned in. And so we had to have a conversation. And in that conversation, he's like, I'm turning stuff in. It's not being loaded. Like, he's telling me everything that's been going on with him from an academic standpoint, but he struggled with going about it because he has other siblings. And like Coach Mitchell said, like, he's making sure his siblings are logged in and doing everything they need to do. And then he has to do. And the reality of it is, they have a little bit more flexibility now. So I'm not saying 100% of it he was wrong. He was right. Like, I get it. But there were probably some times where he should have been doing something and he didn't. But it's just the reality of the situation of, like, now I'm responsible for my sibling. Now, you know, I'm struggling and I can't figure out how to maneuver through this. And it's affecting my grades. It's a tough situation. And, you know, for me, I have a young daughter. And I could only imagine what Coach Mitchell has to go through, because she's in pre-K and she's doing virtual pre-K through CMS. She goes to school for like 45 minutes. And I'm like, how can our teacher keep her attention for this long? Mm-hmm. And then they give her like a 20-minute break. And then she comes back. So by the time I bring her back, it's a complete disaster because she's 4. She's like, I want to be done. I don't want to be here anymore, Daddy. Like, I was here. I left, like, let me go watch Mickey Mouse and play with my toys. Like, I'm not trying to see my teacher anymore today. So I get it, you know, on a lot of different fronts. But what Coach Richmond said, I think he hit it. That's why it's a slippery slope. You just don't want kids to take full advantage of it and just basically say, forget school. You know, I'm not going to log in. I'm not going to turn in assignments. Like, you know, if there's not going to be any 2.0 accountability, you at least need for these student athletes to show you that they're at least making an effort.
All right, transitioning a little bit. Hopefully we get to the point where we can see some competition. I know we got to move through a holiday season without basketball, which will be different, but we'll move right into conference competition and what proposed conference changes are going to do to the future of women's basketball, particularly. So looking ahead long term, I know we got another year, but in terms of how the power balance in the greater Charlotte-Mecklenburg County area could be impacted short and long term, what are some of the things you're seeing? Let's go to Coach Mitchell first.
Actually, I was about to pull up the realignment so I could be able to look at it. So if one of the other ones wants to go first.
I think the realignment is going to make for some very interesting matchups. I don't know if it's going to be a balance, a change. I don't know if the balance of power is going to shift at all. But some of these matchups with the new realignment, some of the matchups that we don't normally get to see, now we get to see. You know, we've talked about Charlotte Catholic and Myers Park, and, you know, it looks like we're going to be able to see those matchups next year. And, you know, some of the teams that we don't normally, you know, get to see beat up on each other, I think we're going to get to see, you know, go head to head. And I think that's going to make it a very, very fun league.
Gary.
Well, we were talking before the show about realignment, and one of the things we mentioned is I don't think it matters as much about the conferences now or the conference tournaments now. I think this would be the perfect time to implement, you know, city championships or regional championships. So you can see the best versus the best on a consistent basis every year. Rivalries do develop every time you have realignment, but you know, a lot of times they dissipate also when you have realignment. So I guess it remains to be seen of the impact that realignment is going to have. You still have your Mecca powers or mega powers. I'm not even sure what the conference is called anymore, but you still have, you know, your Vance, Mallet Creek rivalry that's not going to be touched. And Christy would have to speak on the South end, but I think they would still have some of the same rivalries down there, especially once we get back to having a full season. If you lose a rival, then you just make it a non-conference game.
Yeah, absolutely. Now that I've got it pulled up, each one of the conferences, at least for girls basketball, still has some really good rivalries, like Gary said, with Conference 60, whatever that one's going to be named, Mallard Creek and Vance, and also North Mech in there. So you still have 3 really tough teams. Conference 49, which is mine, AK and South Mech, still going to be able to go at it. That's a big rivalry. And then Conference 59, Butler and Catholic, got Independence, Myers Park, Providence. I mean, that's a loaded conference right there alone.
All right, as great as this has been and as great as this season is going to be, especially when we come to the dinner table at Christmas time, and always, as great as things are, we know that eventually, that we all know that sooner or later, one's got to go. So let's One's got to go. Let's get going. Realignment style. So we're talking split conferences, 33 of them, up from 10 in this current cycle. Are we talking max prep seedings, which I still haven't figured out, by the way. If anyone wants to explain that, please go right ahead. Or 4 classifications for which we're bound in the current NCHSAA bylaws to uphold. One's got to go. Jason, what you got? What's going?
Well, I like the 4 classes. I think we need to stick with that, so we can't get rid of that. And I'll be honest with you, the Max Preps rankings, I liked it because it rewarded people for playing good opponents and their records. And I know that there are several coaches around the city that prefer to play teams that, let's say, aren't as strong as other teams. They like to get the number 1 ranking and have that beautiful, unblemished record. And because we know at the end of the day, that's the easiest route. So I'm going to have to say split conferences got to go. I know they're a necessary evil, but got to keep the max prep rankings. I know we got in the tournament a couple years ago because we played teams, real teams, and we competed real well. And that allowed us last year to have a nice run because we had got a chance to play in the playoffs the year before. So got to say split conferences got to go.
Christy?
I'm going to say 4 classes. I think we need to go to 5. And the reason I say that is because our 4A, you have Audrey Kell at 3,400 students, and then you have Barry at 1,800 students. That's almost double. So having them, both teams in a 4A, that's tough. I think we ought to have a 5A. When I was looking at the realignment, the ADM numbers, I think 8 out of the top 10 schools enrollment-wise in North Carolina, right here in Charlotte. So we got the biggest schools right here. And so I kind of think that just to kind of even it out a little bit, I think we need to have a 5A.
Randall?
Well, I'm with you, Alex. I don't understand these max prep rankings. I don't understand how they work. And I guess because I'm not necessarily all the way in it, that's why I'm getting rid of the max prep rankings, because I just don't understand them. And it looks a lot more difficult for a person like me to understand than the normal, head coach somewhere. So that's what I'm getting rid of.
I'll chime in quickly and just say, I think we lose a degree of transparency when none of us here, and all three of you being much brighter minds than I ever can dream of being, and none of us understand these max prep rankings. That's very, very hard. I do agree at the same time with Coach Mitchell that we're playing a numbers game here, particularly in the 1A at the lowest at the smallest schools in 1A and the largest schools in 4A. You're going to put a school in the 4A classification with 1,800 kids and think that it consistently, I'm not talking every once in a while, but consistently can field teams to compete against a school drawing from a pool almost twice that size. It's a numbers game. That's so I'd be fine with both of them going. But moving right along, this is a really tough one right here. How would I keep them all? M&Ms, Kit Kat, or Reese's Cups? Which one's going? Start us off, Randall.
Kit Kat, bye. It's easy. There's no way. M&M has way too many flavors to ever get rid of them. Snickers now came with the peanut butter with the Snickers, which is like the perfect combination. Reese's Cup chocolate peanut butter is like.
Are we here?
I am.
Yeah. They cut him off because that's just a bad answer. I think that's what happened. I mean, when you got to go baseline here. It's M&Ms. There's just one M&M. Now, if we're talking about all the M&Ms, yeah. But if you just have M&Ms, that's kind of boring. Snickers, he's right about that. You got the caramel, peanuts, the chocolate, the Kit Kat's good to go. I mean, they got that's. You can put them cold. You can keep them, room temperature. And of course, he's right about the Reese's peanut butter cups. Got it. They stay, but M&Ms get out of here unless you're going to give me the peanut.
We're going. Let's go to Christy and Randall. I got to give you an opportunity to redeem yourself in a second because while you were gone, a comment was made. That's one of those in the journalism world. That's an automatic follow-up question. So let's go to Christy.
This is a hard question because they're all chocolate, and that's my favorite. If you would have put out there Skittles or something else, that would have been easy to get rid of. But I'm going to have to go with M&Ms as well.
All right, Randall. Here's your opportunity.
Wow.
The comment that was made was that Randall got cut off because he was given such a bad answer. That's an automatic follow-up. And how would you like to respond to that?
I mean, I could never imagine life without peanut M&Ms. I mean, that right there alone should have been enough to move this thing on to the next round.
It didn't say peanut M&Ms. It's just, I'll agree with you. I like peanut M&Ms.
Yeah,
it's just
M&Ms. It's got to be the whole
chocolate
family.
Candy shell.
The caramel, the peanut butter, the peanut. M&Ms is a whole family. Now, it didn't say plain M&Ms, because if it was plain M&Ms, I would agree with both of you. They both got to go.
I'm going to do the smart thing here. I'm going to do the smart thing to make sure that I don't get cut off for giving a bad answer. I'm going to do the smart thing and agree with Christy. It's all chocolate, so it's all good. So all right, what we got? Tom Cruise, Will Smith, Robert Downey, or Samuel L. Jackson? Christy, start us off.
Robert Downey Jr. all day long.
Jason.
Man, that's I'll be honest, that's the hardest one you've had on there yet.
I agree.
You got Tom Cruise, who he stays alive with the Mission Accomplished or Mission Impossible. Yeah, and I mean, and he's an icon with Risky Business, so he's made it through the test of time. Will Smith and Bad Boys, he's made it through one of the big blockbusters, Independence Day. Samuel L. is just Samuel L. He can play any role and has played every role. And I mean, and even Downey's Iron Man, but I'll go with Iron Man's got to go because he did die. Spoiler alert in case you didn't get a chance to watch Endgame a year ago and COVID and watch every single movie on Netflix. But he does die. So I'm going to go with Christy, but not for her rationale, but because Iron Man is dead. But he was a great character.
Exactly.
Randall.
I think this might be the first time we've done one gotta go, and we had a sweep between the three of us.
Unanimous.
It's unanimous. I actually say we got to get rid of Robert Downey Jr. too. And actually, for Coach Grube, he's 100% right, because Iron Man did die in Endgame. That was the icing on the cake for me, and that's why I said he's the one that's got to go.
Now, y'all noticed he did not get cut off there. Right.
How y'all gonna vote Iron Man off the island, man?
He died. He did his business. He saved the universe. That was it. He's done.
Nobody dies in the comic book movie. They bring them all back. They come up with something. They all come back. Well, Coach Richard, thanks for being on with us this week. We're going to come back next week with more girls talk. Good luck to you in practice and everything, and the mask, and as we get ready for January.
Thank you, guys. Y'all have a good one.
All right.
See ya.
All right. So it's about time for Gary to take us to, which was the number one segment again last week, Gary. You guys went back to number one. You overtook One's Got to Go with Coach versus Coach. And I think we got a new theme music.
Hey, that's nice.
And when did I become controversial?
It went so fast I could barely see that controversial piece.
Yeah, I like that. Kudos to the graphics department. Well, guys, we're going to talk on some other topics in basketball. First, the Charlotte Hornets. Got a lot more talent on paper. Got rid of Nick Batum in his massive contract. So, can the Hornets win more or less than 40 games this season? Randall, you go first.
Less. I mean, we're not playing 82. It would be hard for them to win 40 games playing 82. I love what they've done. I love the draft pick of LaMelo Ball. I think they're going to be a better basketball team this year. Do I think the Charlotte Hornets can make the playoffs? I do. I could see them being a 7 or 8 seed. But 40 games, I don't see how in a shortened season there's any way they get to 40.
Rick?
I would agree. I wish, and I think we're starting to see it, with Michael Jordan being such a competitor as a basketball player, I wish he had the same competitive fire to have a NBA championship team year in, year out. But I do think the Hornets are going to be a lot better this year. I think the addition of LaMelo Ball and Gordon Hayward is going to put them in position to be in the playoffs. I do like the team. I was watching them the other night. I think LaMelo Ball is going to add a lot of excitement to the Hornets. I think it's going to be great to see him play. He has that nice flair for the game, and they got a lot of nucleus as far as the returning guys coming back as well. I like the mixture of Haywood and Ball to the existing returning players.
Alex?
40 games. What do they think this is? Huff High School? I mean, come on, man. I put my odds on Huff High School and Jason Grube winning 40 games over 2 seasons before the Hornets accomplish this. I mean, what else are you supposed to say about a franchise for which the most prominent banner in the original Charlotte Coliseum was when the Hornets won the league's attendance title? I mean, come on now. Give me a break here. You got Jason Grube, who won a state championship at East Mecklenburg and now is at another school. He'll win 40 games beyond what he's already done. He'll win 40 games in the next 2 seasons before that happens in one for the Hornets. And LeVar Ball can't even speak that into existence.
Jason?
I mean, Alex is right. I mean, at the end of the day, you got to make baskets. And I don't know who's going to score the ball for them. I mean, Hayward can shoot it, but you got to put the ball in the hoop. Can they win 40 games? Yeah, because they play 82. Will they win?
Well, they got 72 this year. It's 72.
No, they're playing. That's what I'm saying.
70.
Yeah.
Will they win 40? No, they'll win 24. I mean, the East is the better two, so I don't see it happening. But they got to find some other people that can put it in the hoop. I mean, unless Michael Jordan's coming out of retirement and going to play for him. You guys talk about sparks and energy. You know what I like to see and hear? Whoosh, baskets being made. It's got to be somebody other than Hayward making them.
Okay, guys. Well, this week, Coach K said after another non-conference loss in his gym that he's going to put a halt to the non-conference schedule. And do you think this is because they're losing, or he's truly concerned about the long-term mental health issues and health issues due to COVID?
Let's put this into perspective.
All right.
He said that we're not going to play any more non-conference games. Duke had one non-conference game left on their schedule, and they already had a couple non-conference games scheduled. Look at Jason can't wait to get to me. I can tell already. They already had a couple games that were canceled. Now,
it was Charleston Southern though.
I'm not going to sit here and say that he shouldn't have did it. I understand why people are upset, and Coach K set himself up for this response, because now all everybody's going to remember is the last time a team coached by Coach K was bad. He had a back injury and missed the rest of the season. And I already know, because I hear it all the time from all the Carolina fans. But the reality of the situation is, as a Duke basketball fan, which I'm openly admitting, they need to get back to Cameron. They need to practice. They need to learn how to, like Coach Groove said, make some shots, because they've never been a team to play and stop anybody defensively. But when they figure out that these freshmen that they have should be playing more minutes than these upperclassmen, they get the conference time and all will be right in the world.
All right, well, Jason, your counter?
I didn't hear an answer there. I mean, hey, if we're really good with we cue Coach Oates from Alabama, right? Didn't he call him out? But now what Randall forgot to say was, yes, everything he said was true. He forgot one very important fact about what Coach K did, because Coach K cares about his players. I don't doubt that. Coach K built Duke. But what you don't do is, when you have a little back sore, you don't expunge those losses from your record. It's your program. Now, did he say it at the wrong time? Probably so. Is he going to get it? He's going to get it. Now, maybe Roy Williams isn't going to say anything because they got to play each other twice, but everybody else is going to say it. I mean, it's, zip it and play, or don't play at all.
Rick?
Well, I thought the question could have been asked at a different time, not right after they lost the game, because that's going to be the natural reaction that everybody's going to have. So Coach K did set himself up for the criticism. That being said, they did cancel their next non-conference game, and it was an easier win. They were playing Charleston Southern, so they did cancel that game. My only thought process is, what's the difference from a safety standpoint, between a non-conference game and a conference game? What's the difference?
There isn't one.
Alex?
I'm going to agree and affirm what everyone else has said, that I do believe that Coach Krzyzewski cares genuinely about his players. I'm going to affirm as well the great point that Gary made 2 weeks ago about maybe we're in a situation where he wasn't the appropriate messenger at the appropriate time. It's not a matter of him not caring for his players. I think he does. But that message at that time, given a number of things, particularly what Coach Grube said about having those 94, 95 losses expunged from your record, given what we all know, when has Duke ever lost back-to-back non-conference games in Cameron Indoor Stadium? That's never happened. So given that reality, given the reality that we also know that Mike Krzyzewski has whatever platform he wants whenever he wants. So if safety was a paramount concern, and I do believe he cares for his players, he could have said that at the beginning of the season. So here's what I'm looking for right now. Yes, let's operate with the safety first mindset, but let's also, I want to know if Duke's 2 remaining non-conference opponents got some type of financial compensation for these cancellations, because these are issues for smaller programs playing these money games. I'm not saying that top safety, but if these games are going to be canceled on a whim under dubious circumstances because of the Michigan State and Illinois losses, which make it look, people can talk about it. What is being done to support and ensure the positive plights of these would have been non-conference opponents who do not have the financial solvency of Duke men's basketball or Duke University?
And that's a very good point, because the mid-major programs depend on those money games with the UNC or Duke or a high major program to help finance their athletic department. And I'm sure, Charleston Southern's probably going to lose $150,000, maybe $200,000 as far as the money game. Well, for a school like that has that budget, that's a lot of money.
Correct.
Now, in fairness to Coach K, and I can't believe I'm taking up for anything Duke, but I think he came from it from a mental health perspective. Those kids have been back at school, and they've been in isolation pretty much. And it's at almost every major university. They're taking classes in their dorm room. They're at school, but they're not in class in a classroom building. They're on a computer, just like we've been talking about CMS students studying remotely. And I think that the isolation of not being able to go home and be around family members, or you can't have family members come see you, is a big mental health thing. And I think that's what we all forget is about the mental health during this COVID time period. And I'm sympathetic to what he's saying as far as the mental health. But like Alex said, wrong time, wrong messenger. Just because he was one of the main people saying, we got to have March Madness. We got to have March Madness. We can't afford to go another year without March Madness. We need that $1 billion that CBS and TNT is paying out to the NCAA on a yearly basis for March Madness. We can't do without that money, but you don't get the money unless you play. So
I would think that playing would help the mental health. I mean, I know for our kids that are being out there, that's helping them. So I kind of that argument, it's hard for me to accept that one, because I think the kids need to play. Like you said, they're in the dorms. There's their other family. If you're building that culture and that family atmosphere, you need to be on the floor playing and not canceling games and being more isolated. That's going to me, exacerbate that mental health piece. But
Gary, I'll add one thing to it.
You're seeing around the ACC with football, where you've had 3 schools already in football saying we're not going to a bowl game. It's too much. Our kids need a break. They need to get away from campus, because we've had them so secluded trying to protect them from COVID and not lose games because we have an outbreak. Pitt, Boston College. There's one more that announced today. I think it was Virginia. They said today, we're not going to a bowl game. Enough is enough. These kids need a break from these stringent protocols that we have to go through. And if you think about basketball, they've been going through the same protocols as football. It's just that they're just beginning to play games.
Yeah.
Well, I also want to interject one thing too. I think there's a time and place for every question too. I do think the media person who made that could have asked that question at a different point in time. It didn't have to be immediately after a loss. There's other press conferences they have that they could ask that question.
Okay. Anybody want to add anything else to that topic? We got one more. Okay, then. The state has proposed that the new conference realignment, and the Charlotte schools will be in 3 conferences. Is now the time to look at having a city championship, either during the Christmas holidays, maybe the Martin Luther King break, or even at the end of the season, as opposed to having a conference championship. Jason, you go first.
I don't know. I mean, there's so many questions about the city championship. And you talk about equity. Is that going to be based on what you did last year? You're going to go into what you are right now, your record. How are you going to seed these teams? I think there's more questions than there are answers in that regard. I'm not a big fan of the conference tournament. I talked about this before. We had played, a team 4 times, and 3 times we played them on their senior night. Turn around, played them in the first round of the conference tournament. Turn around, play them in the first round of the playoffs. I'm not for that either. I just don't know that I'd have to see that plan of a city championship. And it goes into so many other questions of, again, how many games have you played already? Who have you played? Are you basing on what you should be from the last year? Because, now you're negating anybody who's outperforming their expectation. They're a better team in reality than they are on paper. And so, but because they didn't return X amount of starters, they don't get seeded number 8. And again, what do you do if you're not one of those teams? Now you have to go back and find something else to play in. I kind of do like the Christmas tournaments. I know it's kind of a pain to find sometimes, but it gives you a chance to get out of the conference a little bit, play some of your younger guys, play a little bit of different strategies or whatever, and build towards winning your ultimate goal, which is your conference, in my opinion.
Rick?
Well, you may remember that this season we did have a Queen City Championship set up right before Christmas, and we did have the top private schools and the top public schools that was going to participate, and we were going to have that at the Harding University, the new gymnasium there. We do plan on at Phenon to host another event before Christmas next year, trying to get all the top public schools and all the top private schools together and play.
Okay, Alex?
It's got to happen sooner or later, but it's got to happen the right way. I have some ideas of a plan that would work. I do agree with Coach Groove that some things need to be ironed out. One of the things that really hasn't been discussed in all these years of talk of a city county championship is we have to have a framework by which this can be an authentic celebration of women's and men's basketball. And how we make that happen really hasn't been discussed in a comprehensive framework. Because if this is not the women and the men on that championship stage, then the efficacy of the event is compromised severely. I do think Charlotte-Mecklenburg Schools is in a tremendous position to broker appropriate arrangements for a championship, given that the Charlotte Independent Schools Athletic Association does operate with the 8-semester rule, which does afford an appropriate degree of commensurability. I think we have a number of appropriate venues among both the public and private schools, with a number of things on the horizon. I mean, one of the most beautiful gymnasiums in Charlotte-Mecklenburg School is Jason Groove Gymnasium. Huff has a beautiful facility. Myers Park's facility is beautiful. Providence's facility is beautiful. Just to name a few, and there are others. And I think we know that a few years from now, when we see the new West Charlotte High School, that's going to be a beautiful facility. So we have the opportunity to celebrate a number of things and really integrate the manifold, diverse traditions that have been integral to building up the multifaceted Charlotte-Mecklenburg City County rich, storied basketball tradition and lore through the event. But we do have a lot of details to work out to ensure that the young men and the young women can compete on the same stage. We have wonderful venues among the CISAA schools too. So let's make Langston Wirtz happy. And,
hey, Randall, you got
before Randall goes, I need the thesaurus to go through all those big words he was using in this conference. Go ahead, Randall.
Let's make Langston happy. Let's all come to the table. If everybody can agree that we should come to the table to make Langston happy, let's do this in Langston style right now. If everyone agrees, okay, 1, 2, 3, stand up.
Go ahead, Randall.
I love it.
Go ahead, Randall.
I'm all for it. I loved Coach Rick's idea. I know we talked about it last year here on the podcast. So if we can't get a city championship, a tournament where the public and private schools can get together, the best of the best, and kind of see what's what. I'm all for that. I think that's the thing is you just want to find out who the best basketball teams in Charlotte is. As long as it's done correctly, we'll take it.
You can do a city championship. You can do it in lieu of a conference tournament. You might have to build in a week prior to and have it over 2 weeks. You can do it over MLK week, the week before an MLK week. You can do it the week before Christmas or 2 weeks before Christmas and build it in. I would love to see like a regional event like Alex was talking about. You take teams and put them in the North regional at Huff and put them in the South regional at Ardrey Hill, so forth and so on. And then you get down to a championship and you have consolation games just like you would when you go to some of the AAU tournaments on the weekends and make sure everybody gets the same number of games. So you got one bracket that goes out to the right and one bracket that goes out to the left, and everybody gets the same amount of games. And then you get to the championship, and if you have it during a conference tournament week, you can introduce your all conference teams and give out awards to those players. Let them get seen in front of the whole city. And I remember when Vicki Hamilton used to hold the conference championships, and Gary remember this at UNC Charlotte, and everybody would get to play, and it was a really big deal. They did it at Bojangles Arena, Independence Arena, whatever it was called at the time, and everybody got a chance to be seen, to be and be a part of it. I know city championships and other places work really well. I've talked to a reporter in Pittsburgh over and over and over again who tells me that is to those kids it's more important to win the city than it is the state. I just think it could be a big deal. And I think right now with CMS being in 3 conferences, and I did not put this question in the script today, but I think with CMS being in 3 conferences, it would be an ideal thing. This is my 2 cents. That's my soapbox for the week.
Yeah, I think it's time, like you said, the kids used to look so forward in going out to Bojangles.
Yeah.
They call it Championship Friday.
Yep. They call it Big Friday. Big Friday.
And you played the boys championships, and the teams that weren't even in it, they still went to watch. In the arena, you had like 5,000-6,000 people out there, and that became the goal. Is to let's go play at Bojangles.
Can you imagine though if you introduced your all conference teams during that event and all the girls that made all conference and all the boys get to come down, the Coach Groove comes out and gets his Coach of the Year trophy. I mean, everybody would be excited about that. I mean, I wanted to see this for a long time, and I think you guys in CMS are in position to do it now. And I hope they'll look into it. I think it'd be a good thing. Well, look, guys, we've been on for a long time. We're going to keep you guys all night long. We're going to make it shorter next week for you guys and shorter for the viewers. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I love Coach versus Coach this week. You guys were good. And we need to have like Coach Grube and Randall just have a ongoing segment.
I'm sure we can find something to argue about every week.
Like boxing match or something. Yeah. But I'm Langston. That's Randall. That's Alex. That's Coach Rick. That's Coach Gary and Coach Grube at the bottom. We'll catch you guys next week. We are talking preps.
Go Buffalo Bills.
Oh, wow.